Here's Walter Alexander, my eldest son we couldn't find. This is Dylan Matias, who turned 5 that very day. This is Marlene, the mother, my partner, who was 29 years old. And here lies our 7-month-old baby.
Manuel Salvador Zapata's family died in the same place where they lived. A landslide buried his wife and children in 2020. Here, where their house once stood, there are now graves. For reasons unknown to Zapata, the number of landslides in this region has more than doubled since 2018.
Your destiny is written for you, and you can't go beyond that to look for someone to blame. Often there are those responsible, but it's better not to dwell on blame at such moments.
But are there truly no culprits? To understand what's happening here, we need to go back to 2018. That year, the multinational China Harbor Engineering Company CHEC began constructing the Autopista Mar 2 highway. The company and its Chinese parent group have built infrastructure in over 150 countries. Yet, both the US and the UN sources had put the parent company CCCC on a blacklist for alleged bribery in several countries. This raises important questions for Colombia. Is the construction company responsible for the problems of a small community there? What responsibility does the Colombian state bear for how such projects are implemented? And ultimately, who benefits from this project? Progress is a long-standing dream in this region of Colombia. Medellin is Colombia's second-largest city, yet it has lacked an adequate route connecting it to the Caribbean coast in the north until now. More than a century later, the dream is about to come true. And halfway between Medellin and the coast lies the small town of Dabeiba. But where the dream comes true is not entirely positive for the local population. Daniel Herrera has been the mayor of Dabeiba since the beginning of this year. He has lived in Dabeiba for his whole life. Since 2016, he has worked in various positions in the governor's office, from Secretary of Government to Municipal Public Defender. This allowed him to closely follow the effects of the highway construction in his community.
The highway project isn't really designed with municipalities like ours in mind. What it really benefits is the business of importing goods, because ports are being built in Urabá to receive goods from all over the world.
Primarily from China, which already accounts for over 21% of Colombia's imports according to the official figures. And the mayor is not happy.
If the project aimed at exporting local goods, we'd all benefit greatly as agricultural producers. But look at our municipality's internal roads. They're terrible.
The old local routes that eventually led to the coast passed through the town center, boosting its economy. But with the new road, communities like Dabeiba are now marginalized.
They don't care about the negative effects on small municipalities like ours.
The new route hasn't just caused economic damage. Some are convinced that excessive dynamite used to open roads has triggered numerous landslides since construction began. An engineer who worked on the construction for 2 years agreed to speak with Deutsche Welle, requesting anonymity.
I believe several of those landslides were caused by bad procedures and practices, where they should have only done mechanical excavations. They used explosives. This made the mountain fragile, causing it to slide. There were many such bad practices.
The largest incident occurred in 2020, with simultaneous landslides in 5 different communities. Over 300 families lost loved ones or suffered material losses.
It's known that where the company was building the road is the same mountain where the landslides occurred. And obviously such large landslides had never happened before in Dabeiba. It was very strange.
It was on that fateful day that Manuel Zapata's son turned 5 years old.
I went to bring a pancake to my son for his 5th birthday, but I couldn't make it back because of the landslide. I couldn't get there that day.
A family tradition made him the sole survivor.
I really wanted to surprise him. We've always surprised family members on their birthdays. You act as if there's no birthday at all. When least expected, you show up with a little soda, some small thing, a cake, and that will bring joy to the whole family. And the person bringing it feels great, because they are making someone in the family happy.
Following the tragedy, Dabeiba's mayoral office of the time commissioned studies. But the current authorities have doubts about the results.
These studies focused more on how to evacuate these sites, or what to do to prohibit these sites from being used for residential or productive purposes. But the study wasn't really directed at finding the root causes of the landslides.
After the landslide, representatives of the highway concession talked to Zapata.
One day they took me to the market and asked what I thought about it. They might have suddenly felt guilty because with all those explosions, they might have thought that these explosions might have loosened the earth. Maybe they worried I, who lost his whole family, would file a lawsuit someday. But that wasn't on my mind at all.
The engineer resigned from the company, fearing he might be held legally responsible for bad construction practices.
I could get in trouble because a lot of those things were my responsibility. I decided to resign because I didn't want to be liable for all that. It was my signature on many engineering designs.
Deutsche Welle asked Colombian authorities and the Chinese-led consortium about the alleged excessive use of dynamite in the area. The consortium asserted that no landslides have been reported due to controlled blasting with dynamite. They claimed their techniques are generally appropriate and have been evaluated throughout the project. But many in Dabeiba believe the consortium's malpractices extend beyond construction techniques. The current mayor says this was clear from the start, particularly in how they chose local partners.
It's no secret that the former mayor, in office during the project's execution, is a businessman with many interests in Dabeiba. For example, the Chinese had their largest camp on this man's farm. Their offices and operations center were owned by this man. The parking lots they used were owned by this man. The hotels used were this gentleman's property. So this already poses a great conflict of interest. How can you look after Dabeiba's welfare when you're benefiting from numerous large contracts with the very entity from which you should be protecting your people?
Despite DW's repeated requests for comment on the allegations of conflict of interest, former Mayor Urrego failed to respond. DW had access to visit his farm where the former camp of the Chinese company was erected. There, the infrastructure built by the Chinese company is now destined to become a touristic site with hotels and swimming pools. The consortium built a paved entrance to the former mayor's once difficult-to-access property, which was not part of the original project plans. But elsewhere, the company argued the original plan could not be altered, even when thousands of lives are at risk, as in La Meseta. La Meseta is an informal neighborhood of Dabeiba, founded in 2019. Today, it is home to around 3,000 people. When the consortium, led by the China Harbor Engineering Company CHEC, signed the contract to build the highway in 2015, this neighborhood did not yet exist. When the highway construction began, the company chose to act as if the newly built neighborhood on this land wasn't there. John Alejandro Dorrego worked for the consortium between 2021 and 2023 and lives in La Meseta.
This neighborhood is located about 50 to 60 meters above the road tunnel. So we have a slope that covers the land to prevent erosion. But as time passes, the slope is cracking and becoming unstable, damaging the whole neighborhood. So we live in fear that suddenly there will be a landslide and all the families will fall onto the road below.
Entonces vivimos con la zozobra de que de pronto haya una avalancha, un deslizamiento y todas las familias caigamos de pronto a la carretera.
Dabeiba is just one of the towns through which the Autopista Mar 2 passes. But the irregularities here aren't isolated cases, says Mariam Catolina Micolta, an expert investigating Chinese infrastructure projects in Latin America.
The company CHEC goes as far as it's allowed to go, like many other companies. For example, in the case of Dabeiba, we have seen environmental claims and irregularities that could ultimately lead to possible corruption cases. And it's crucial to look at what's going on in each project and how much oversight there is. This includes both the civil society that's affected in situ, as well as the state agencies' high-level responsibility.
In this part of Colombia, it could be said that the consortium has erased part of the region's past. An archaeological site housing over 100 tombs up to 2,600 years old, one of Colombia's oldest, stood here until the consortium bought the land and began to dig it up. Ingrid Vidales is an archaeologist who worked on the consortium's excavation projects.
They originally wanted to use the site to store the debris of the highway construction.
The excavations were necessary because Colombian regulations required a prior archaeological survey. The consortium decided to quickly raise the land instead of choosing another site as a deposit area.
When they realized the complexity of the archaeological site and all the tombs present, they decided not to continue excavations to preserve the heritage, but also to save costs and avoid further delays in the project.
But the damage was already done. 1/3 of the burial mounds no longer exist.
The Palmira Alta burial mound is of great importance as one of the country's oldest. It's a place of respect for sacred pre-Hispanic ancestors, where communities could connect with heritage that's been plundered, stolen, and imposed as something foreign to them.
Archaeological artifacts found in the tombs are displayed in a museum created by the consortium in Dabeiba Center. However, the museum was closed to the public when the DW team wanted to film it.
Ideally, Upper Palmira would have remained unexcavated, to be studied and shared by the archaeological community. Those 28 burial mounds that were completely excavated can never be recovered.
Experts call on institutions to be more vigilant. so that large infrastructure projects are also beneficial to the communities involved.
Dejemos un poco de vernos como sujetos pasivos.
We must stop seeing ourselves as passive subjects in the face of investments by other actors in our countries. Whether or not investment projects are beneficial depends on both parties. And here it's very important to bear in mind that if we want a profitable relationship with China or any actor, our institutional strength must be robust enough to ensure that relationship is truly beneficial.
Because otherwise, what's at stake might not only be the past, but also the future of entire communities.